My wife and I have been together for 11 years. We love each other deeply. I know everyone says this, but the love we have for each other is unique in the way we care for one another, so fully, so unconditionally. But like all relationships, we have faced very strong hardships on our journey together. We met when we were younger. We got married when I was 25 and she was 19. We had our first child, a son, shortly before that. We love our son, but it didn't take long for us both to realize that something wasn't right. We went to doctors and family and friends, all of whom reassured us that it's just our first child and he will grow out of any phase he is in. However, his vocabulary had slowly started shrinking, and he was beginning to have violent tantrums and inflicting self-harm. Finally, when he was about 4 years old, the doctors brought to our attention that he might be severely autistic. When he was diagnosed, we were told he was nonverbal, almost like a neurological stutter. He has certain physical sensory issues, making it hard for him to eat certain foods, and he would be significantly on the spectrum. Of course, hearing this was not easy, but my wife and I are a positive couple and saw this as a step forward, believing we were finally moving in the right direction. We knew we were willing to do anything to make our son happy. Fast forward a few more months, and infection 19 breaks out. Every social service in place to help our son shuts down or goes digital, which our son could not manage. On top of that, the school we had him in took full advantage of the infection 19 rules and sent kids home for anything and everything. My son was sent home for having a runny nose, for having a cold sore after staying home and getting over a cold, and my personal favorite, they once sent him home for what they described as a blemish on his backside. The rules were that if a child was sent home, they could not return without a negative infection 19 test or after a 10-day leave. Because of our son's sensitivity, the infection 19 test was extremely traumatic. After the third test, we decided it was too much for him, and he ended up missing over 100 days of school. Up until this point, I had been working nights most of the time, so I could be available to help at home during the day. We faced difficulties in finding any kind of childcare. A professional daycare we discovered was lying about feeding our son, and when having a friend watch him, we showed up to find the babysitter passed out on drugs with the front door wide open, leaving our son free to run off. Our families tried to help as much as they could, but they acted like they couldn't handle him. My wife and I felt like we couldn't trust anyone, so we leaned on each other even harder. Later, I lost my job due to exhaustion and frustration that I had started bringing to work. I hoped to get promoted so I could take better care of my family, but I became impatient. My wife and I stayed strong and bounced back as best we could. This would not be the first time my family felt as though we had to start all over. Soon, we decided to move across the country for a chance at having an actual home. We had already done this twice before in search of the pieces we needed to allow our lives to move forward. And while we did find a home, our other issues followed. We still had no support for our son, no financial stability, and the strain at home never stopped. I was able to find work, but my wife was left to take care of the kids most of the time and managed most of the housework. With only one income, I usually had to take on more hours or more intense jobs to provide for the full household. But having moved so far from friends and family, we found ourselves without any breaks. No relief from the constant demands, no time to give to each other. Our son has a hard time sleeping, so most nights I would stay with him to relieve my wife, who was exhausted from the all-day care. If I was too tired, she would step in and do the same. In the last year and a half, our son has started to run away from home, putting himself in significant danger. We have had no choice but to completely lock down our house. Every door or window has at least 3 locks. Our love for our son has never changed, but our relationship with him has slowly started to feel more like wardens than caregivers. He constantly puts himself in harm's way, no matter what precautions we take. Currently, we are still struggling to find either one job that meets our financial needs or childcare so both of us can return to work. And now my wife and I are at a strange point. We love each other, but the hardships have been relentless. It's reached the point where we have questioned if we can do this together. Is the problem that we simply do not work? Of course, I want to be with her, and I want to work this out, but she is having a hard time finding the strength to push on, and I don't blame her. A little backstory on her end. This isn't the first time she has had to care for a family member in need. She was tasked with the same responsibility for a sibling since she was young, so the struggle has felt even more endless for her. So we are just at a complete loss. We don't know what to do with ourselves as individuals. We don't know what to do about our relationship. We don't know what to do for our family, childcare, finances, and we don't know where else to look. I want to give her space, but I am unsure if we can survive that space, as it won't get any easier taking it all on alone, and she is unsure if we can survive this together. Thank you for any advice or relatable insight. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So this might be an unpopular bit of advice, but how old is your son? My grandparents had similar issues with my uncle due to brain damage from scarlet fever resulting from prenatal malpractice from my grandma's doctor, and at 8 years old, when they could no longer lift him to properly care for him, they ended up needing to make him a ward of the state. They stayed very involved with his care until they died, and my dad and his other brother took over, overseeing his care for the rest of his life. It was really hard, but it ended up being the best for everyone, as they had less day-to-day pressure and stress in their lives from being caregivers to an extremely needy child, and he got better professional care than they could provide. They still saw him frequently and could be there for him, but allowed the professionals to handle the bulk of the care. Comment 2. Wow, that's such a tough spot to be in, and it sounds like you and your wife have been doing everything you can under some truly intense circumstances. The fact that you both still love and care for each other after all these years and struggles shows how strong your bond is. Maybe it's not about if you can do this together, but how to make it work in a way that helps both of you breathe. Have you thought about finding a support group for parents of autistic children? You deserve some outside help and a break for both your relationship and yourselves. Now, for the update. 2 days after the last update, I got a call from the school about our son. They told me he was involved in an incident where he ran away during a fire drill. So yeah, my heart dropped. I rushed to the school, feeling like I was going to throw up with anxiety the whole way. I just kept thinking, what the hell happened? When I got there, the principal explained that our son got scared and confused, which led him to bolt from the playground. I mean, who can blame him? He probably had no idea what was going on, thanked the principal, left, and realized we seriously need to have a talk with our son about safety. That evening, my wife and I sat down with our son to discuss what happened at school. This was not easy. He struggled to articulate his feelings, and sometimes it felt like we were speaking different languages. The challenge was real. We decided to find a local autism support group to get strategies for communication because we need all the help we can get. While researching, I found a community center offering workshops for parents of kids with autism. I'm not gonna lie, I signed us up for the next workshop, hoping it would help improve our family dynamics. A few days later, my wife told me she felt overwhelmed with our son's challenges. I get it. She's been under a lot of stress. I offered to take on more responsibilities at home to help her out. Anything to lighten the load, you know? Later that week, I went to the workshop at the community center, met other parents who share similar struggles, and honestly, it felt good to connect with people who get it. During the workshop, a speaker talked about advocating for our children's needs in school settings. Man, I was inspired. Took a ton of notes and planned to speak with the school about more support for our son. After the workshop, I shared my insights with my wife, but she seemed distant and distracted. Like, what's going on? Noticed her getting these late-night text messages, which made me a bit suspicious. So yeah, I decided to check her phone while she was sleeping. Found a series of messages with a friend we had a falling out with in the past. The messages hinted at our friend offering emotional support during tough times, which really bothered me. I confronted my wife about the messages the next morning, and she insisted it was just a friendship. She said the friend understood our situation. I felt uneasy about it, but tried to trust her, keeping my guard up. At the next workshop, I learned about setting boundaries in relationships. So I started applying these principles at home, hoping to create a more balanced environment. A week later, my wife invited her friend over for dinner without asking me. Yeah, felt blindsided and uninvited in my own home. During dinner, the friend made several comments that rubbed me the wrong way. I decided to speak up, saying I felt uncomfortable with the friend's presence. The conversation escalated quickly, leading to the friend leaving in frustration. After the friend left, the atmosphere in the house felt super off. We got into a heated discussion about boundaries and trust. I explained why I felt uneasy about her friendship with someone who had previously caused issues. She accused me of being controlling, which just made everything worse. I firmly stood my ground, insisting we needed to prioritize our family. The argument spiraled, and she suggested we take a break from each other. I agreed to a temporary separation, feeling it was necessary for both of us. I moved into a spare room, and we agreed to talk again after a week. At the end of the week, I approached my wife with a structured plan for our family. We sat down together and discussed our individual needs, leading to a more constructive conversation. I suggested involving a mediator to help with our discussions about our son's care. We agreed to take steps toward rebuilding trust, setting the stage for a more honest relationship. I really thought we were making progress. We had some tough but necessary talks, and I felt like we were on the right path. Just yesterday, we sat down to discuss our son's school situation, and honestly, it was the best conversation we've had in months. No raised voices, just open and honest communication. But this morning, everything changed. I woke up to find my wife packing her bags. When I asked what was going on, she told me she was moving out for a while to give us both some space. I felt like I got punched in the gut. After everything we talked about, why would she do this? She said it wasn't about us, but needed a break from the constant stress of our son's challenges. I get it, but I don't know if I can handle this. I'm worried sick about our son, and now about our marriage too. She's not sure when she'll be back, and the uncertainty is driving me nuts. I'm just trying to keep it together for our son's sake, but honestly, I don't know how much more I can take. Just wanted to share this for now. Hopefully, I won't have to update again about something even worse. Mini update. After my wife moved out, I was left trying to maintain some normalcy for our son. We started a daily routine, which included time for homework, playing outside, and a new bedtime story. This brought some much-needed stability. Over the following weeks, our communication improved. My wife and I agreed to meet weekly to discuss our son's progress, and she returned home after a month. We both realized that our son truly needed us to present together, which gave us a renewed commitment to our family. Am I the idiot for refusing to move in with my girlfriend's family and demanding we live together first? I'm 21 years old, and my girlfriend and I have been dating for 9 months. We've been talking about moving in together. However, my girlfriend comes from a very traditional, family-oriented Belizean household. I currently live with my brother and a friend, both around the same age as me. My girlfriend lives with her mother, younger brother, and grandmother. The grandmother is extremely traditional, believing that I need to marry my girlfriend before I can officially be part of their family. In fact, I've only spoken to the grandmother twice during our entire relationship. The younger brother likes me and supports our relationship, which is great. The mother, while generally nice to me and supportive of our relationship, shares the same traditional view. We can't live together unless we're married. Unfortunately, she treats my girlfriend poorly, calling her names and often being rude and disrespectful. My girlfriend has a very demanding schedule. She wakes up at 5 a.m. to take her brother to school, attends her classes at 7 until around 1 p.m., and then works from 4 until midnight. Despite this, she's still expected to do most of the household duties, especially for her brother. Her mother switched her work shift under the pretense of taking care of her son, but does very little to help. Others have even pointed out that my girlfriend is more like a mother to her brother than her actual mom, which only caused more conflict between them. Recently, the family has been discussing moving out of the grandmother's house and finding their own place within the next 8 months. My girlfriend and I were also planning to move in together around that same time, but her mother insists that we can't live together until we're married. I truly love my girlfriend and envision marrying her one day, but I believe it's important to live together before taking such a significant step. Besides, I'm simply not ready for marriage yet. Now for an update. My girlfriend told me that her mother suggested I move in with their family, with the plan that we could move out once we're married. This doesn't sit well with me for a number of reasons. I already have my own place with my brother, and we have a dog together. While my brother will soon be moving out and taking the dog, I still value my independence, and she could just move in with me once that happens, which will be around the same time we were talking about moving in together. More importantly, I know that living with her family would be entirely different from living alone with her. To complicate matters, her mother has threatened to disown her if she moves in with me before marriage. My girlfriend, having spent her entire life with her mother, feels deeply controlled and manipulated, yet still craves her love and approval. She isn't willing to move out with me until we're married because of this dynamic. I don't want to be the reason for a rift between my girlfriend and her mother, and I certainly don't want to force her to choose between us. But at the same time, I feel incredibly stuck. I don't know how to handle this situation. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The issue is the mother seems hurtful, and even if it wasn't marriage, it would be something else that you are expected to do or pay for. I honestly don't see a way for you to help your girlfriend currently, especially since she is so overworked and overwhelmed with everything that has been put on her. How old is her brother? She will most likely hold her brother against her if she tries to step away or leave. I would usually at least suggest some therapy, but I don't know if she would even have the time or money, as I'm sure her mom also asks for any money she has after paying for her studies. I would suggest she at least sees if she can talk to someone at college, like a counselor or an advisor, who could give her advice about what services or help might be available to her so she isn't so stressed with her busy schedule. Comment 2. Absolutely do not move in with her family. Her mother makes no sense here. You're allowed to live with them, but the two of you can't live alone? Are you going to bunk with her little brother? Your girlfriend is very young and still likely financially dependent on her mom for school. If she is, she has to either support herself or bend to her mom's will until she's self-sustaining. The only thing you can do here is very gently remind her that she's her own person who gets to make her own decisions. Suggest she find a therapist and start working through her mother's control over her life. Otherwise, you both have no hope for happiness. Do not move in. Now for the update. A couple days after the last post, I met with my girlfriend Maria to talk about our situation. We met up at a local diner, which was kinda our spot. When I saw her, she just seemed so distant, like scrolling through her phone while I was trying to talk to her just made me feel like I was talking to a wall. I noticed a text notification from her mom pop up on Maria's phone that read, "Have you thought about what we discussed?" And I started to feel uneasy. So I asked her if everything was okay, and she quickly dismissed it, saying it was just her mom being overbearing again. I mean, I get that moms can be overbearing, but this felt different. We left the diner and I offered to walk her home, hoping to talk more. We passed a park where a family was having a birthday party, and it just felt so normal, But then Maria suddenly stopped and said she needed to go home, cutting our walk short. I agreed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We usually enjoy our walks together, but not that night. The next day, Maria called and said her mom insisted they have a family meeting. I was like, oh great, just what we need, more family drama. The meeting was set for the upcoming weekend at her grandma's house, and Maria sounded anxious about it. Honestly, I was anxious too. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early to help with preparations, eager to show my support. Maria's mom was already there, making a big fuss over the arrangement of the dining table. I mean, it's just a table, right? But whatever. Her grandma arrived next, and she greeted me warmly, but quickly turned her attention to the preparations. During the dinner, The atmosphere was so awkward. Everyone was avoiding eye contact with me, which just made it worse. After a couple of awkward comments about the food, Maria's mom brought up the living situation. She said they wouldn't discuss anything until I had formally asked for Maria's hand in marriage. At that moment, I felt cornered. I'm like, this is not just a casual family dinner. This is an ultimatum. Maria sat silently, looking down at her plate as her mom continued to pressure me. I said we were still figuring things out and that marriage was a big step, but her mom raised her voice, claiming I was wasting her daughter's time and ruining her future. I tried to defend myself, but the conversation escalated quickly, with her mom calling me selfish. Seriously? Maria finally spoke up, but her words were more about appeasing her mom than supporting me. Then the grandma chimed in, asking how long they intended to keep playing house without commitment. I felt trapped. I was outnumbered, and the evening was just spiraling. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to breathe and collect my thoughts. While in the bathroom, I overheard Maria and her mom arguing softly. I heard phrases like, "You need to make a choice," and "I won't support this," piercing through the door. Returning to the table, I noticed Maria looking teary-eyed, and her mom had this victorious smirk. It just made me feel sick. I tried to lighten the mood, joking about how they could just elope and save the drama. But Maria's mom exploded, declaring that if they eloped, Maria would be completely cut off from the family. The tension reached its peak as Maria looked between her mom and me, a silent plea for understanding. I stood up, feeling defeated, saying I needed to leave before things got worse. As I walked out, Maria followed me to the door, pleading for me to stay. Outside, I turned to her, feeling so frustrated, saying I couldn't be in a relationship where I was treated like this. Maria's mom opened the door and shouted for her to come back inside, making everything even more uncomfortable. Maria went back inside, leaving me standing alone on the porch. I drove home feeling like a complete failure. I just don't know what to do anymore. Edit. After the events of that day, I needed some time to think. Maria and I didn't talk for a couple of weeks, during which her mom cut off her phone plan, so we couldn't text. She still had Wi-Fi, but it was tough. Then one day, she texted me from her brother's phone, saying she had moved into her own apartment with her brother's help, but her mom was still upset. She told me her brother had been a great support, even though they had to hide it from their mom. We met up to talk things over, and she was more adamant about standing up to her mom. So I've decided to ask her to marry me. Am I the idiot for calling out my overbearing mother at a family dinner and refusing to apologize? I have been moved out of my parents' respective houses since I began renting an apartment in my hometown about a year ago. Before that, I lived at home for around a year and 2 months after leaving university, but during that time it was September to May. I was in another town and had no car, so I couldn't travel. I also work at the same place as my mother, so I just thought I'd quickly get that out of the way before we start the story. So, a little over a year ago, I moved out of my parents' place and got my own apartment, and originally, it was great. I'd hear from my dad every few days asking how my new place was, and my mom stopped in a few times. I thought that would be the end of it, and I'd finally be getting some of that independence I had been missing since being away at school. It wasn't. Over the next year, while my dad's communication kind of fell off because he knows there's not much going on in my life worthy of updating unless I go out of my way to tell him, which is true, and we were never the closest when I was growing up, so it's not too much of a surprise. But with my mom, her behavior has just kept getting worse. I work from 2:30 to 10:30 in the evenings on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and she works at the same place, albeit in a different room, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so we see each other quite frequently. She'll always be in the break room when I come in, so she can talk to me, which is fine. I love talking to my mom, but she never takes into account the fact that I also have a life outside of work. If I don't answer her texts fast enough because I can't have my phone on my person at work, she'll think I'm mad at her and that she did something wrong. And even when I tell her nothing's wrong, she'll still insist that she needs to change, and then it's the exact same thing the next week. Also, since I work evenings on the weekends, I don't get much time where my friends' schedules line up with mine. But every second week, my best friend's days off align with mine. So we try to get together and do something. But every single day off I get, I constantly receive messages asking me to come over both nights for supper, which I already know is going to supposedly be at 5:30, but it won't be until at least 6:30. Then, she'll ask me to stay and sit on the couch with her and just talk to her. She doesn't even spend this much time with her fiancé, but it's not like that with any of her other kids, just me. My 19-year-old sister lives in a completely different province, but my mom is more concerned about seeing me and contacting me every day. It'll be even more interesting when I'm at her house and she'll actively ignore her own mother's phone calls and texts and not think anything of it, but then tries badgering me and essentially guilting me into feeling bad about not spending enough time with her. It's just beginning to become frustrating because it feels like I'm being smothered by her for every little detail of my life, to the point where I'm not even able to have a life because all the free time I'm getting seems to be going towards doing things with her and working on our perfectly fine relationship. Plus, my boyfriend has been getting frustrated as well because he wants me to have a good work-life balance. He also works with me and her, so does her fiancé, and feels that my mom is not letting me have a work-life balance, as every time I go see her, we end up ranting about work. So, there's really no time where I'm not thinking about work. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. From your other comment, it sounds like she has some guilt about the divorce. Or maybe that's just more manipulation on her part. Whatever is going on with her, as others have said, you're not responsible for fixing this wrong idea she won't let go of. Just keep telling her, no, there's nothing wrong, and then live your life. No, I'm sorry, I can't. I have plans with best friend that evening. No, I'm sorry, I can't. I have plans with boyfriend. See you tomorrow at work. Then do not entertain her guilt tripping or get drawn into a heavy discussion about your relationship with her. Try treating it lightly. Laugh and say, of course not. Just because I'm going out with my boyfriend or best friend doesn't mean I'm mad at you, Mom. Don't be silly. And then change the subject. Repeat as often as necessary. No, Mom, I already told you, there's nothing wrong. So, did you get your hair cut yesterday? Don't get sucked in. Above all, don't let her guilt you into neglecting your other relationships. That is unhealthy for you. If you are firm and don't reward this behavior by giving her more time and attention than you really want to, eventually she'll give up this tactic. Comment 2. I am the middle child and was my mom's favorite for some reason. No matter how often I saw her, it was never enough. She basically would have liked me to be a lump on her couch and have me sit there 24/7 to watch me breathe. That might have made her happy. You need to set boundaries with her. Yes, she will pitch a fit, moan and groan, and carry on. Stick to your guns. Make it like maybe just every other Sunday you would go to her house. If she complains, then let her know you could make it just once a month then. If she tries arguing with you, then let her know you came to talk and visit, not argue. If she continues, let her know again that you came to visit, and if she continues, then you will leave, and you also will not talk to her on the phone for the remainder of that night. Follow through on this. At work, see if management can schedule your breaks separate from when your mom goes to her break. Or maybe a different lunchtime if possible to get you some breathing room at work. Reiterate that while you still love her, you don't like her behavior, and it has to change. Good luck to you. Now, for the update. A few months ago, I posted about my mom being super clingy and how I was trying to keep it together while keeping her happy. Since then, things have gotten a lot more complicated. For one, I've been feeling even more overwhelmed by her constant need for attention. It's like, can't she get a hobby or something? I've started limiting my visits to her house because every time I go over, it's just her ranting about how I'm never around. So now, I've been making excuses about work and personal time. It's honestly exhausting. Alex, my boyfriend, has noticed how strained our relationship has been lately. He suggested we take a weekend trip together just to recharge and get away from it all. We decided to visit a nearby beach town for a relaxing getaway. It was exactly what we needed. I left my phone on silent to avoid any distractions, which I knew would make my mom go crazy, but I just didn't care at that point. Everything was fine for a while, until we went to a family dinner for Jake and Rachel's baby shower. I was really looking forward to it, but of course, the topic of parenting came up, and my mom just had to start making unsolicited comments about how parenting is a full-time job. She said how she expected me to be more involved with her life, especially now that I was living on my own. I tried changing the subject back to Jake and Rachel, but she just kept talking. She went on and on about how much she missed having me around and how she wanted us to have family dinners more often. That's when my sister Kate, who lives far away, joined the dinner via video call. That just added to the pressure. My mom started comparing my life choices to Kate's, saying how she wished I would be more like her. Kate's the favorite in our family, always making my mom proud with her life decisions. It's not like I don't love my mom or want to spend time with her, but it feels like I'm being suffocated by her constant need for attention. A week later, Alex and I invited my mom over for dinner to discuss the ongoing issues. I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk things out, but wow, was I wrong. The dinner started off well, but it quickly escalated when she complained about my lack of communication. I tried explaining why I hadn't been responding to her texts, but she just kept interrupting. Then she accused me of not understanding family obligations. I was so fed up at that point that I just snapped. I told her that she was being unreasonable and that I had a life of my own. She stormed out of our apartment, claiming I was ungrateful for everything she had done for me. A few days later, Alex told me that my mom had been going around to friends and family saying how difficult I had become. She made it seem like I was the bad guy in the situation. That was the last straw for me. I decided to confront her through a group text with family, laying out the truth about our relationship. I included examples of how she had overshadowed my life and relationships. The family group chat erupted with mixed reactions. Some family members sided with me, while others defended my mom. It just caused further division in our already messed up family. During all this chaos, my mom sent a furious text accusing me of airing family drama publicly. She was so mad, and I wasn't even sorry. The family dinner for the upcoming holiday was looming, with everyone unsure of how to address the situation. I decided to invite Alex and make a point of having a more significant presence that day. On the day of the holiday dinner, I arrived early with Alex, ready to face the family. The atmosphere was tense as I sat next to my mom, who was visibly upset. She kept giving me side glances, and I could feel her seething next to me. As dinner progressed, she continued to make passive-aggressive remarks about my choices. I could feel my blood boiling. I finally snapped and called her out in front of everyone about her behavior over the past few months. The family members were taken aback, and the conversation quickly turned heated. I told my mom that she needed to back off and let me live my life. The confrontation reached a peak, and she left the table in tears. After the dinner, I received a text from her, demanding an apology for embarrassing her. I replied with a clear message stating that I would not apologize for standing up for myself. The family dynamics have shifted significantly since then. Some family members are now taking sides, which has made things even more complicated. I plan to keep my distance from my mom until she acknowledges her behavior and communicates differently. This new boundary has really changed the family landscape, and everyone is trying to navigate the fallout from the confrontation. It's a mess, but honestly, I feel like I needed to do this for my own sanity. To answer a few questions, my mom has made comments about my relationship with Alex and even tried to set me up with other guys in the past. This has made Alex uncomfortable. As for family members siding with my mom, my dad and older brother are among them, which has been tough for me. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.